I mused for quite a while, in fact many years, about a way of philosophy that would provide this kind of guidance to achieving harmony. And I began in my 20s to sort of hear about it and learned that it existed in China since the 5th century before the Common Era. Taoism, spelled with a T, but pronounced with a D. Depends on what dialect you're working with. Taoism. In Infinity in Your Hand, UU minister William Hoff stated, except for Zen, which arose out of it, Taoism is more enigmatic, more contemplative, more naturalistic, and less creedal, intellectual, and meddlesome than all the other religions. And I join him in what he believes. He said also, although my own way of life and thinking comes nowhere close to being a Taoist, still, my spiritual impulse esteems Taoism above all others and hungers for it. So history and legend combine to tell a story of old man Li of ancient China. Li, disgusted with politics and tired of his work as a curator in the Royal Library of Zhou, started on a journey to a distant and secluded countryside. At the frontier, the warden, Yin Xi, implored him to write a book containing his knowledge, which he did. Li sat down, wrote 5,000 characters, and went on his way, never to be heard of again. And that book, the Tao Te Ching, is the most important text of the Taoist philosophy. Although attributed to Lao Tzu, old teacher, as Li became known, the sayings in this little book, which is the most translated book after the Bible, has its roots in ancient shamanism. It is most likely the result of 3 centuries, 650 before the Common Era to 350 BCE. Shamanism, oral compositions handed down by different philosophers. Some passages are quite close to those you would find in the Bhagavad Gita, the most important text of the Hindu religion. Some ideas are similar to Sufism. Thus, the concepts were not isolated in China at that time. From then on, that 3rd century BCE, forward, Taoism underwent many changes and divisions, as have other philosophies that became religions. Many beliefs, practices, and sects arose. Some Taoists tell a charming story about a virgin who had mistakenly swallowed a plum pit and fell asleep under the tree. She awoke 80 years later. Or a son, Lao Tzu, a wise old man with a long beard. Some Taoists became alchemists, looking for the elixir of life. Others, magicians and sorcerers, performed for money. Still others followed monastic paths and became hermits, sought solitude in the mountains and oneness with the Tao. But no matter how many schools of Taoism exist, the basis of the Taoist philosophy is embodied in the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching, the one I've showed you, plus the Chungsa, and again, there are many ways of pronouncing it. That's the one I learned, this little book. Chungsa is a compilation gathered between 475 and 221 BCE, with additions as late as 420 in our era, and attributed to one person also, Chungsa. According to Eva Wong, who is in the process of translating some of the 14,000 texts that make up the Taoist canon, she says, Chungsa is an eccentric who chuckles to himself. He isn't concerned about being understood. From Chungsa, we learn about a wise old man who said, he who is content with himself has done a worthless work. Achievement is the beginning of failure. Fame is the beginning of disgrace. He who can free himself from achievement and from fame, descend and be lost amid the masses of men, he will flow like the Tao, unseen. He will go about like life itself, with no name and no home. Simple is he, without distinction. To all appearances, he is a fool. His steps leave no trace. He has no power. He achieves nothing, has no reputation. since he judges no one. No one judges him. Such is the perfect man. His boat is empty. The third of the three classics is Lizi. He's a friendly voice, a casual voice, according to Wang. He is someone who gives us advice, not because he's an expert, but because he's made mistakes and he's learned from them. With contributions written more than 600 years, beginning in 300 BCE, Lizi is a compilation of stories to illustrate lessons in living. In one, he discusses more the value of emptiness by saying, most people like to be praised. They feel good when their accomplishments are acknowledged. However, I believe we would be better off if we were empty of attachments and not impressed by recognition, approval, or disapproval. In the long run, we would have fewer things to worry about. So that's Lizi. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching is a sage. His ideas are presented in an organized manner. We learn from him, nothing in the world is softer or more supple than water. Yet, when attacking the hard and the strong, nothing can surpass it. None in the world do not know this, yet no one can practice it. Right. So, for those who practice the martial art component of Tai Chi, these words have a lot of meaning. The requirement for success in Tui Shou, or sensing hands as it's called, is to yield as water yields, to be supple and to be soft, to overcome the hard. In life in general, we can practice yielding in business dealings or any number of situations. Whether applied literally or figuratively, this approach, yielding, going with the flow, can have positive results. Yielding, like water, will find its way through a situation. In the fifth of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, we get an idea of yielding. That one says, seek to understand before being understood. Sonia Sotomayor, my new hero, expressed another way of practicing yielding. She was interviewed by Gwen Eiffel this past week on the news, and she said, if you don't imagine what the person you are speaking to might be thinking, you cannot anticipate how that person is reacting to you. Yield. Pause. Know the other before you respond. Yielding suggests that you relax, like are drunk. You don't get hurt when you relax. Relax, you sense, and you understand before acting. So try this mantra. The next time you're cut off in traffic or participating in a meeting, try this mantra. Live in the space between stimulus and response. Relax, breathe, choose. Action, non-action. Let it be your action, not a reaction. Okay. So Lao Tzu, Chungzi, Lizi, they all talk about enlightenment, merging with the Tao, and how best to behave. Lao Tzu is poetry and provides serious wisdom, while Chungzi is prose and provides a crazy wisdom. And Lizi is a kind of a comic strip, the voice of humorous wisdom. These classics provide us with the glimpses of the wisdom of living a life of harmony. So what about the Tao? All these texts talk about Tao, but they never directly answer the question, what is Tao? Chungzi tells us that any word we use to explain Tao points to something greater. Lizi tells us if we can talk about it, then we probably don't know what it is, only if we do it. Lao Tzu tells us, he who speaks doesn't know. He who knows doesn't speak. Word you use, this would be a challenge. Literally, the Tao translates, as we've said already this morning, as the way. The simple translation is the way or the path. Many paths or ways are open to each one of us as we journey through life. So translating Tao, the way, to the way is easy, but understanding the term is a little more difficult. According to Victor Mayer, one of the many translators of the Tao Te Ching, the Tao is deeply embedded in elemental human experience. My favorite description of Tao is this: before there was something, there was nothing, and the nothing I call the Tao. Your description might be different, and that's coming from your experience. So since Taoists believe that you can't really name Tao or explain it, it is your experience, and how you voice that is fine. I believe Eckhart Tolle comes really close to suggesting how to have that experience in the book, The Power of Now. He speaks often about physical practices throughout that book that can help you stay in the now, how to not be chewing over the past or worrying about the future. And that's what Taoist meditation or the practice of Tai Chi offer to some people, that experience of connection. It's a challenge to be connected to something that you can't describe or explain, but that's what Taoists accept. So the next word, we've done Tao the way, De. The title, Tao Te Ching, is often translated the way of virtue, and Ching just means a collection or scrolls or book. The dictionary says that virtue is a conformity to a standard of right morality, some kind of moral excellence, some beneficial quality or power of a thing. However, Victor Mayer again provides a different definition of De. This one, he worked with some of the oldest silk manuscripts that have been found to date when he did his transliteration. It took him over 2 months to come up with it, and he would go through it and he'd see de here, and de there in the Chinese, and sometimes he thought it would be self would be good, character would be good, personality, charisma, virtue, power. But when he pulled it all together, he said that integrity is the only word that seems plausible throughout the whole Tao Te Ching. And by integrity, he says, I mean the totality of an individual, including his or her moral stance. The term signifies the holistic inner quality or character of a person. De is determined by the total of one's actions, good and bad. So we can cultivate our De, our self-nature, our self-realization, in relationship to the cosmos. De is the embodiment of the way, and is the character of all entities in the universe. Each creature, each object has a De, and that is their own manifestation of the Tao. So the De of Taoism is not about conforming to a moral standard. Each of us can determine how best to understand the way for our own life and our own moral beliefs, our own integrity and uniqueness in the universe. And for this reason, Taoism resonates with me strongly. So living a harmonious and virtuous life becomes the goal of the Taoist, and Taoism tells us how to do that. Practice Wu Wei. Wu Wei is Chinese for non-ado. No effort. The most dynamic notion of Taoism. If you've observed practitioners of Tai Chi, they appear to be moving in a natural flow, as if they're swimming in air. It looks effortless. Wu Wei. But don't be misled. Wu Wei does not mean to live limply, or passively, or apathetically. Taoism wants us to live according to our own personal nature. Lisa tells us, if you understand what it means to be effortless, then there is nothing you cannot do. You can be yin or yang, hard or soft, short or long, round or square, hot or cold. You can live or die, float or sink, strike a high pitch or low, appear or disappear, take on colorations of black or yellow, become sweet or bitter, be fragrant or pungent. By knowing and doing nothing, you can know all and do all. Wu Wei. It's not about an absence of action. It's about spontaneity and non-interference. It's about letting things follow their natural course. It means doing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, with as much effort as needed, and no more. It means accomplishing what is necessary without an ulterior motive. To Stoics, a similar concept meant spiritual potential. In the Tao Te Pu, one of the most entertaining, I love this book, introductions to Taoism, and it's available in our library. Benjamin Huff, who also wrote this book and the Tao Te Da and disappeared. Nobody knows where he is now. Huff explains the meaning of Wu Wei to be without doing, or causing, or making. In other words, without being meddlesome, combative, or egotistical, not getting in the way of the nature of things. The symbol for Wei, the character shows a clawing hand and a monkey, and Huff suggests that Wu Wei means no monkeying around. Changsa tells us a story to illustrate Wu Wei. Confucius and his students were walking along the gorge of Li, and they saw a man jump into this waterfall they were admiring and plunging thousands of feet. So they ran to this riverside, and just as they saw him coming out of the water, and he's shaking the water off, and he was beginning to sing, and Confucius approached him and asked, "How did you manage to swim through those dangerous waters?" And he said, "Oh, I don't really have a particular method of swimming, except I don't fight the water's power. I float with it and sink with it instead of trying to force my way through it. Trust what was meant to be." That's what I do. Nanadu, Wu Wei. It means following the natural course and trusting what was meant to be. Wu Wei. No summary of Taoism is complete without considering the yin-yang symbol. The great Tai Chi. It means Tai, supreme, Chi, ultimate. Embodied in this symbol is a constant and harmonious flow of opposites from one to the other. Sorry, Gary. The white portion, the yang, has a dark dot. The yin has a white dot, letting us know that an extreme will always go back to center. Black and white, good and bad, dark and light, male and female, heavy and light, being and nothing. All opposites are actually continuums and ever-changing. As soon as something gets to an extreme, it will return. Accepting the inevitability of change helps us to flow on our constant changing world, from yin to yang and back again. We approach harmony when we accept the natural flow of things. One day, Lisa said to his students, "Think about this. Old Man Sky never says a word. But we can see that everything has its place, and in the universe, nature has a lot to teach us. All you need to do is open your eyes and look." Thus, the way of harmony, Taoism, asks us to yield to what is, accept and understand the flow of yin and yang, act with non-ado, Wu Wei, and live a life of personal integrity, Da. It is these behaviors that connect us with the harmony embodied in the philosophy known as Taoism.